Hello everyone, welcome to English Grammar lesson number 2. I hope all of you all have watched lesson number 1, and if you haven't, then I'll leave a link for it in the description box. Do go there, check the entire video, and then come back to lesson number 2 so that you're consistent with the flow of grammar knowledge that you acquire from these lessons. Before moving on to lesson number 2, let me just quickly remind you to please subscribe to the channel, because unless you do that, you won't be getting the notifications whenever the next lessons are up. Also, next to the subscribe button, you will see a bell icon. So ensure that along with the subscribe button, you hit the bell icon as well. Otherwise, you might just miss out on some of the important notifications whenever new videos are posted. So do like and share the video with friends and family as well. So if you would have watched lesson number 1, I have briefly given you an overview over there of what you can expect in lesson number 2. So in today's lesson, we shall discuss the definite article the. The indefinite articles a and an were discussed in lesson number 1. So again, if you haven't watched it, please do go back and watch that and then come back to learn about definite articles the. Next, we'll also look at first person, second person, and third person ways of perspectives, or how these are commonly used in daily communication. Next, we shall also touch upon questions that are formed using what or who. We'll actually be dealing with subject and object questions that are made using these two terms. Okay, so starting with the definite article the. So this is one of the most commonly used term in English language, and this the is used when you're referring to something specific. That is, you're already aware of what particular thing is being referred to. So whenever the is being placed before a noun, it is used to define something specific. Also, when using the term the, we know that the listener or the reader already knows exactly what is being referred to. But there are cases where you can use the and how to identify where you put the. So the first case that we'll discuss here is when there is only one. What only one? Well, let's look at it with an example here. The moon is very bright tonight. So we all know that we are talking about one particular unique specific moon that we all see. So it is only one thing that exists. Therefore, we say the moon. And also, the can be used along with superlative adjectives. So let's see that with an example. Well, it is the oldest building in the city. So here we make use of the superlative adjective and we say the oldest building. So whomever you're referring to knows that we are talking about the oldest building in the city. Therefore, the use of the term the is quite obvious here. Okay, so the next case is when there is only one in that particular context. So, say for example, we say, Dad, can I borrow the car? So, in this case, the son is asking the dad to borrow the family's car. So, the dad and the son or the daughter already knows that which particular car they're actually referring to. So, it is the car that belongs to them, the car that belongs to the family. So, the use of the car is quite obvious here. Next case is when we have already mentioned it. So as we said, we use the when we're talking about something specific. But what when we have already mentioned it once? So for the second instance, we can very well use the. So for example, a young man robbed a garment store. The man used a heavy hammer to smash the window in the store. So here you note the second sentence that begins with the man is actually referring to the a young man that we saw at the beginning of the sentence or the first sentence. So a young man when referred to again becomes the man. And again, when we're referring to the garment store in this next instance, it becomes the store because we already know about which store it's actually being talking about. Okay, so the next case is when we are referring by a in case of a noun. So when we are referring or using the in case of such scenarios, for example, we have the kangaroo is found only in Australia. So in this case, we know they're found only here. So the use of the kangaroo is quite justified in this case. Next, when we use it to refer to a system or a device or a service, so for instance, the television or the mobile phone or something specific here again. So for example, I heard it on the radio. So you're talking about the specific thing here, the radio. So again, the use of the is justified. Next, we shall look into the first person, second person, and third person thing that we talked about. So these are nothing but describing points of view. So when we talk about the first person, it is something that is talking about yourself. You're talking about yourself, therefore we call it as I or we. So this is that first person point of view. When we talk about second person, this is something when you're talking to somebody else or somebody in front of you, you're referring to the second person, you make use of you. Again, coming to third person, in this case you are talking to somebody about somebody else. So in this case we use he, she, it, or they. So please note the 3 points of view. First person is when you're talking about yourself, second person you're talking to somebody, third person here when you're talking to somebody about somebody. So next, let's look at the first person. So as I said, this is the speaker, this is you. If you're talking, it's you or myself. So you can, in the singular form it is referred to as I, and in the plural form it would refer to as we. That is a collection of people and you're referring to that particular collection of people and you're the speaker here, so you refer it to as we. So for instance, I prefer coffee to tea. So in this case, you see I is the first person who is the speaker. Next, if we talk about the second person or the addressee. So in this case, you are talking to somebody. The subject pronoun being used here is you. So for example, you prefer coffee to tea. So in this case, I am telling you that you prefer coffee to tea. So this becomes the second person way of speaking or the perspective. So you is the addressee in this case. So next is the third person. So third person is nothing but the third party individuals. That is you, the speaker is speaking to the second person about the third person. So for example, in this case we use subject pronouns he, she, it, and they. So for instance, we have he prefers coffee to tea. So this is talking about a third party. So in this case, he is the third party. Next, some simple tips to remember or help you differentiate between first, second, and third person is, so when you're talking about the first person, I am talking about myself. So you're giving information about yourself. So for example, I enjoy swimming. So this is first person because you made use of I. So you're giving or letting out information about yourself here. Second person writing, you're talking to somebody. So in this case, you say you enjoy swimming. So in that scenario, it is something like the speaker is trying to give out information about the second person. So, and in the third person writing, I'm talking about someone. So for example, he enjoys swimming. So the speaker is talking to a second person, referring or giving out information about the third party. And the third party in this case is he. So next, we talk about questions. So we'll basically just touch and go on this, and this particular thing will be elaborated in the next lesson. So questions will basically deal with what and who. And again, there is something called a subject question and then something called as object question. So let's see what these subject questions are. So subject questions are something when the question revolves around a subject or letting out information about a subject. So for instance, you see this question here, who runs to the school? So in this case, the question word is who, runs is nothing but the verb, and the rest of the part is the rest of the sentence. Similarly, in the next instance, we have Rob runs to the school. This is the answer. So this is nothing but Rob is the subject here. So in subject questions, so you have the question word, and in the answer, you get the subject. So who runs to the school? We see the answer to be as Rob runs to the school. Okay. Next, we shall look into the object kind of questions. So see, for example, we have who do you love the most? So in this case, we have the question word as who. Next, we have the subject as you. And next, we have the verb as love. So here the answer should revolve around the object. So we have say the answer is I love mom the most. So the answer is giving you the object as the output. Next, we also have what does he want. So here the question word is what, and the subject is he. Want is the verb. So this is how you phrase your object questions. Next, few tips to remember, differentiate between object and subjects. Here would be, say, in subject question, we want to find information about the subject. So for instance, who wants some juice, or what causes tuberculosis? So here, who and what are the question words that is trying to attain information about the subject. Also, see, in case of the object question, we want to find information about the object. So say for instance, the question here is, what do you want to drink? Or who does Fred like? So say for the second question, we answer it as Fred likes Ruby. So who does Fred like? So here the question object would be who and the answer object would be Ruby. So these are the basic criteria that helps to determine or differentiate between subject and object kind of questions. So this summarizes lesson number 2. We spoke about the definite articles, we spoke about the first, second and third person. We also touched upon questions, subject questions, object questions, and we saw the use of what and who. Upcoming video is lesson number 3. Please ensure that you watch lesson number 1 and lesson number 2 before you begin lesson number 3. And in lesson number 3, we are going to talk about the use of interrogative pronouns. So these would be the use of who, which, whom, what, whose. So we'll look at the use of these. But again, before ending the video, I would request all of you all to please subscribe so that you do not miss out on the notifications. And also don't miss out on hitting the bell icon. Otherwise, hitting the subscribe button is of no use actually. Okay, so do like and share the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you.